preserve the qualities and the unique character that make Lake Forest a special community. We recognize the personal importance of each petitioner's request. Our goal is to respect the needs and desires of property owners while balancing the interests of the community as a whole to preserve and enhance its architectural character and its landscape streetscapes. For those of you who may not be familiar with the Building Review Board, the types of projects that come before this board are those in which the property owners are requesting a variance to allow a home that is larger than permitted by the code, are seeking a demolition permit and approval of a replacement structure, or otherwise involve issues that could not be fully resolved by city staff. It is important to note that over 95% of building permits are issued by the city without the need of any board review. Thus, the board typically delves into the most challenging and sometimes controversial projects. The City of Lake Forest is committed to conduct open and fair meetings. To achieve that goal, the board has adopted meeting procedures, and all parties will be provided an opportunity to speak. These procedures are outlined in the agendas available at the back of the room. This meeting is also broadcast on cable television. Speaking on behalf of the entire board and city staff, our objective is to provide a review process that is thorough, fair, and without unnecessary delay. The next order of business is typically the approval of minutes. I do not think we have any minutes to review at this meeting, so we'll get those next time. The next item on the agenda is the consideration of a request for approval of demolition of the existing residence and approval of a replacement residence with a detached garage at 128 Atteridge Road. Approve the overall site plan, and the conceptual landscape is also requested. Owner is Childs Development, and the representative is Michael Bresman, architect. Welcome.
Thank you. Chairman King, board members, I'm pleased to present Atteridge residence for Childs Development, 128 Atteridge Road. It's a tear down of an existing house. I'll give you some quick property history. Atteridge Road has a nice mix of understated architectural styles, from clapboard colonials, simple Georgians, and four squares. It has a really nice feel. It has a modest but elegant feel to the street. Narrow and deeper lots on the north side and varying depths on the south side of the street. The existing property, the property laid vacant until the current home was built in the 1950s. It was an infill development, and the architectural style of the house is a nondescript 1950s ranch. There was a subsequent rear addition and one-car garage that were added probably within 10 years. Childs Development purchased property in 2014. The existing structure, the home is obsolete. Structurally, it's problematic and would be an unworkable expansion. Structurally, if you looked at the report, there's settling on the first floor deck in the rear addition. The second issue is that the current setback of the existing house of 4 feet is 6 feet both to the east and west of the new 10-foot setbacks. This creates a couple of problems. One is structurally, if we were to add on above it, to be able to carry the second floor and not align it with the first floor because of not going in for a zoning variance, it would be structurally problematic and cost prohibitive. Also, from a massing perspective, it would be quite unworkable. You kind of take a look at it as a wedding cake and it tears up. And then the architectural style would lack cohesiveness just for the fact that you have to honor, you're not going to be able to build out 4 feet from the other property owners. If you pull it back, it would be, like I said, it would lack the cohesion that would be needed to make it look like that's the way it was designed. And quite frankly, the amount that you would add to it, the city would essentially think that it was a demolition anyway. The replacement structure, the architectural style is compatible with the streetscape. It's really been influenced by some of the four squares that are on the block, but it is an updated four square. It's asymmetrical, it has a couple of different elements, but it's simple and understated, and I think it has a certain charm to it, which I think, again, is appropriate for the block. It has appropriate massing. The narrow lot and the 10-foot setbacks really set the tone of the property. It's asymmetrical just because of a floor plan perspective, that because if it's a narrower lot, that you're not going to have a central hall or central door with a room on either side. The banding, the use of materials, the variation from a wide plank on the first floor to where you have double hungs on the second floor and then you have the cedar shingles is a way of breaking up the proportions and giving it a human scale. And the continuous rear porch helps helps with the massing, and then the hip roofs, which are consistent with the architectural style. Appropriate materials, like I mentioned, the strong base on the bottom, the horizontal siding, the softer upper band. As you go up, it feels lighter. Architectural grade asphalt shingles on the roof. Appropriate architectural detailing, from the hip dormer roofs to the front and rear porches, sided and blended two-story bay, which I'll talk about in depth a little bit further. Double hung windows tied to the upper frieze board and the continuous band that kind of pulls everything together from all four elevations. And then the simple brackets and judicious use of columns on both the front and rear. You can see the existing property is right here, Atteridge Road. Here's the picture of the 50s ranch and a lot of really quite attractive homes on Atteridge. And it just has a really nice, I think, just a nice feel to the street. This is the existing structure from the front. You can see the garage. There's a change in color of the bricks, so we know that this is a one-car addition, which makes it problematic. You can't add a two-car garage without tearing that garage down. Again, you can see here, this is the proposed structure, the two-car garage in back, and then the dashed lines here are the existing structure. You can see the 4 feet off of the property lines, top and bottom, and how it would be problematic to add a structure on top of that. It would be the wedding cake. This is the overlay of the front elevation. You can see where we're going up, but we're pulling away from both properties per zoning code, and then the existing structure. This is the streetscape with the new structure on there. There's a gentle grade change as you go down Atteridge Road to the east, the Foursquare to the west, and and the heights kind of vary down. These are some things that after I went through designing the whole house and then kind of looking at it and to kind of go through the process of the design after it was designed. And there's some elements that are on different houses on the block, from the hip roofs to the front. My original design, the one that I showed Kathy in our meeting, was a shed roof. And it's like, okay, I think we need to make that better. We need to develop it. You can see on this house that it has the banding, the different materials, at least the different colors. You can see on this one, and you'll see on one of our elevations, that form follows function. You have a side entrance here, and you have the staircase as it goes up. It's at the different heights than the windows on either level that are on the front and back. And then this is directly across the street. It's a nice farmhouse, and it has a 2-story bay. I've done a number of 2-story bays, and if they're handled correctly, they're quite attractive. And this is the rendering of the existing house. You can see that we have the driveway, or the new house, the driveway to the east. We have the hip roofs, hip roof for the front entrance. We have this, defined upper element here with the 5-inch exposure to the cedar shingles that give it a softer feel. The larger horizontal siding, again, to signify strength and base. You can see the bay here. It's a shallow bay, and you'll see by the plans, it only comes off the wall 1.5 feet because it has to die into the roof line. It's supposed to be really integrated. When I first showed this to Kathy, she had concerns about it. I mean, she may still have concerns about it, but as you can see, as that other picture that I showed you before, the bay, before I had it panelized on the bay, and it did look like a 2-story element. And so what we tried to do was soften it further by having the horizontal siding go through the bay so that this line reads in the horizontal element of the whole front. Even though we don't have a continuous porch to the front, it still reads more horizontal than vertical. And then you can see here from the floor plan, again, you walk through rooms because it's a narrow property, the 10 feet on either side. It's a side entrance. Frank Lloyd Wright would do that all the time. It was a kind of a journey to find where the front door is. You can see here the bay is a shallow bay. It's not a 45-degree bay that comes out really hard and comes out farther. It's not a box bay that comes out and is rectangular. Again, it's supposed to give just a little bit of extra space on the inside and also just interest on the outside. And you can see the back here, we have the porch that's continuous, one-story porch all the back, and the nook is integrated into the porch. Second floor, we step back, you can see the roof line here, the roof of the front porch. You can see the stair, and we'll talk about that in the dormers for the side dormers. And then the third floor, and really you'll see some of the building sections that it really is like an old home, old Foursquare or any other structure in Lake Forest where it has an attic. It's 8-foot ceilings, knee walls are 4 feet. We're really building it to the roof line to get extra storage and extra space. It's not meant to be a third floor on a house. You can see the building section going through the main roof, and you can see the knee walls, and you can see how we just have a little clip here, and that's 8 feet, and just the people to give you some scale. Now, this is a section through the stair through the middle of the house. And the reason why we have the stair in the middle of the house as opposed to going into the middle of the house at the ridge line is it would divide up all the rooms. When you have such a narrow lot, a lot of the times the stair gets placed to the middle of the property but out to the side walls. You can see here that these are my pop-up dormers on the sides, and they're shed roofs. And instead of going and I'll get to the slide earlier, but later, is this here is the stair. By code, I have to, and I've dashed it in, I have to have 6'8". So you can see that I'm only adding a little bit more than what is required by code to get up to the third floor. Okay, there. So here I want to just kind of highlight, because I know there's comments by staff in regards to the massing. Again, by your code, this, I could go up all the way this high, although I haven't. I'm saving half of the massing. I took a look on both sides of doing hip dormers. My plate height would have to be all the way up here. It wouldn't work on this side because the roof lines would be coming down on both sides, and I would be hitting my head. So this area right here, I just have a couple more minutes if that's okay.
Okay, please go.
The shaded area here is the additional massing that is required to have that shed dormer go up and make this usable space up here. And this is only a 6-foot high knee wall for the bathroom, and we could go out, like I said, we could go up much higher, although architecturally it wouldn't work. So we're trying to be sensitive from the beginning. And then to use the shed dormer, again, it's a plane that's going up to the ridge line. It's the least intrusive element that we could have to serve the function that it is. And so you can see the front elevation here, you can see the dormers beyond, you can see the bay here and the porch, and then the unifying banding and the different materials from lower. The rear elevation, this is meant to be designed that this was infilled, that there was a porch at one time, and then we filled it in for the breakfast area. The hip dormers in front and back. The side elevation side, this is where you come in for the mudroom, so you have closer access to the front of the property and also to the garage. You can see the shed dormer here, how it just pops up enough out of the roof to get a window in there and then shed it towards the ridge line. And on here, we come down, made a conscious effort of, even though this is in the same plane, to continue the freeze board and the overhang so that there was a break here that would, instead of this popping all the way up and make it more massive, that this would read flatter. And the garage, pretty simple, 2-car garage with the wider clapboard siding. Fairly simple, nice fenestration for the garage doors. Landscape plan, showing some landscaping foundation plantings, and then the front elevation. And you can see here dormer-wise that really what it does is that dormer and the other dormer, they cut the roof, they're there, they add interest, but I think they're appropriately masked, and I think they're quite attractive. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Kathy, could we have the staff report, please?
Sure. Thank you, Chairman King. This is a strong project. Staff supports the demolition. The house, in this case, is a later house on that block and really differs from the character along the streetscape. Demolition does seem appropriate. There are 5 Norway spruce trees on the property. Initially in our discussion, staff really encouraged the petitioner to save the tree in front, and he designed this plan to do that. City arborist does support, at this point, removal of all 5 trees. He noted that all of the trees are limbed up. Trees, particularly on the east side near the east property line, are also trimmed up all along one side, so they are awkward in form and probably, as Norway spruce, probably have lived their useful life. With respect to the tree in front, his conclusion was that removing that tree, because it will be awkward, it will be hard to get lawn or anything else to grow under it, that really does provide the opportunity for some new plantings. Because these trees are in deteriorating condition, we would not recommend requiring inch-for-inch replacement, but that the city arborist be authorized to work with the petitioner to appropriately have a couple trees planted that over time will really help to continue the tree line character of the streetscape. City arborist also recommended that the garage, the detached garage, currently it meets the setback of 5 feet from the rear property line, but he recognized that there's a multi-family housing directly to the north, and he suggested that shifting that garage an additional 3 to 5 feet will allow some plantings, which will over time really benefit the backyard and the overall character of this house. So that's a recommendation before you. With respect to the house, the 4-square style is very appropriate for this block. Looking for the board input on a few massing elements. This isn't a simple 4-square. If you drive down that block, very few of those homes, although they're all full 2-story massing, consistent with this, very few of those homes have dormers or large dormers on the side. There is a home a few houses to the east of this one that does have a dormer on one side, but looking for some input from you on whether that full 2-story projection on the front and then the large dormers on either side elevation, whether the massing that those add complicate this 4-square in a way that isn't consistent with the neighborhood. Is there some simplification to one or more of those elements that would be appropriate? We do think with your direction that we could work with the petitioner to make any of those refinements, and with that, we do recommend approval if the board's comfortable. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Now's a chance for the board members to have any questions for the petitioner or staff. And Ross, you want to start us off tonight?
Sure. The third floor is listed as 198 square feet. Is that accurate?
I believe so, yes. It's all per bulk. Is that bulk? It might be bulk square footage. Yes, it's bulk square footage. So anything that goes from the attic floor to the roof line, wherever that cuts 7 feet, that's considered bulk. So the 198 is actually bulk square footage. It's not living square footage. So it's just, it's working within the zoning and the bulk requirements that the city has laid out.
What is the material called for on the front porch?
For the roof itself?
No, the landing.
Oh, it's probably going to be some kind of brick paver or bluestone or some kind of stone. It's not going to be concrete.
And the walk to the front stoop is asphalt or
Pavers? Pavers.
pavers?
Pavers.
The garage doors are called for the decorative doors with
Yeah,
lights? with
Jamie,
lights?
Jamie has done those doors on 318 Bluff's Edge. They're very attractive and they're as drawn.
The intended roof structure has the curve to it,
Yes, it does.
the hip lines? Mm-hmm. Will the garage match that?
The garage is just a simple hip. It matches more or less the upper roof of but it's the hierarchy of design. So the garage is meant to be attractive, complementary, but at the end of the day, you're not going to flare those eaves.
And the corbels will be built as shown, as reflected?
If I have any say for it, yes, yes. You know, the architect's always pushing for those things, so,
Okay, thank you.
thanks.
Ted, any questions?
I'd say the one thing that would love more input from you on is the design of the columns in the front of the house. And I understand the positioning of bringing the door into the area of what would otherwise be the porch so that you have the door swinging, not swinging into the,
Yeah, I'm kind of
Living
creating a
space.
vestibule.
what I'm wrestling with is optically, the two columns on, as you're looking at the front of the house, the two columns on the left, which are not full columns and really just have wall right behind them.
Yeah, they're gonna be pilasters.
If there might be some better way that might show them, and I know you're trying to balance the left and the right side and all of that. Had you given any thought to other alternatives that you could walk us through?
Really, this is generated by the function of the floor plan. Again, because you're walking through the rooms, you wanted to have a little bit of, lower panelized. When you walk through on either side of that doorway, not only could you open the door into this, but it would be panelized. The ceiling would be dropped down, give it kind of a nice entry feel as you go through into the living room. So the columns on the left are really made to be like pilasters. And so that second pilaster, the one to the right on the left, that wraps around the corner. So it's in a sense integrated into the column. So it's a little bit of a different application. And then on the right side, as it dies into the back wall, that's a pilaster too. And then the two columns on the corner will be square. So to me, it's like, these are the kinds of things that you find in old houses that are quirky, that you're having to do, that add interest to a building that over the last 30, 40 years that people have tried to get rid of, to make them simpler or to solve an issue, and then the houses lose interest. So I've worked on a lot of historic houses in Lake Forest. And it's those neat little spaces that clients who have good discerning taste realize happen because of situations like this. And this is just trying to balance the inside to the outside. And I thought this was the most effective way of handling it. Instead of taking that column off of that corner and then just having one column to the side, then that whole bump out would say, okay, why did they do that? So it's really creating that corner pilaster, that bump out, that makes everything tied together and makes it work. Is it typical? No, it's not typical. But to me, I wouldn't be showing it if I didn't think that it worked and I was behind it.
Okay. My only other question, again, coming to the front door area is, where the roof line immediately above the door is hitting the extension on the front of the house, is there any issue with snow damming in terms of, do you need to change some?
Oh, I'm going to have it's not shown in the rendering, but I'll have a slight saddle there on the left side so that it'll all come pitched back, and then there'll probably be a gutter to the left. One of my faults as an architect is I typically don't show gutters, but builders are always getting after me. But so there'll be a downspout to the left there.
That's all I have, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Michael?
One of the comments in the staff report was about the garage siding, and I wanted to just see if I could get your feedback on your thoughts on the siding of the garage.
Architecturally, I was just holding to the setbacks and trying to maximize the amount of space between, especially since there's a little bit of a turnaround there, to back out so that you don't have to back all the way out of the driveway, to maximize the space between the house and the garage. So the backyard space is at a premium. So if I move that another 3 or 5 feet forward, at that point, you know, that's at the sacrifices of the yard. And you know, these infill lots that are 50-foot wide and the 10-foot setbacks, because the reality is, not to bring up other villages, but and I'm fine with it, but in like Wilmette and Winnetka and whatever, I think it's not a total of 20, it's a total of 5 and 7 or something like that. That allows you to have maybe a shallower house and a wider house, and allows you a little bit of different housing stock. So when you go long and deep like that, then, you know, the backyard is at a premium. So from my perspective, we want to push it back as far as possible, but, you know, I think that's something that Jamie can talk about further if, you know, since he's the developer, how strongly he feels one way or the other about it.
So what is the area along the multifamily, along that common lot line, what is that like? Would it benefit both properties to have that additional 3 to 5 foot for landscaping?
Well, I think they can still plant the landscaping to the west of the garage so that it provide a screening between, you know, both the multi-housing and the property owner. And although it's not the garage doors, you know, I think it's for a 2-car garage, it's an attractive garage. And at the end of the day, if you put, you know, arborvitaes or something behind that, you're just hiding a garage. So, you know, I feel strongly about some things. I'll fight you on a couple other things, but the garage placement, I think it's placed where I think it should go, but, you know, I'm not going to fight you on it.
That's all I have right now.
Fred, any questions?
Yep. Yes, continuing about the garage, I had a question about, just to understand, was the arbor's suggestion to move it west or south, an increased difference,
I thought
distance?
south. South?
To the south?
Yeah, south,
Okay.
yeah.
And that was, but that, your plan is showing it the way you have originally intended it?
Yeah, I just think any person that would live here, you know, would want a decent backyard, and I think that 3 feet is a lot, you know? So,
Okay, well, that answers that question. The other question I have is, had you considered and looked into other dormer configurations? Or, you know, I appreciate what you've done and can see it very clearly. Just curious as to what you might also have looked at along the way.
what I originally looked at was, and I don't typically show my examples, I don't know, maybe it's wrong of me or whatever, but on both of the dormers, on this dormer, I first showed it as a hip roof, just like the rest of them. But to me, it seemed like it became more massive and it became more of an element. So that wherever my crown line is and where the windows are, then I would hip it. And then that hip was going all the way up to the ridge line. So instead of seeing just that little sliver of siding there, then all of a sudden I'm seeing a whole bunch of roof. And so again, this is from the bathroom side, this is the least intrusive dormer. Again, we could have gone up another 2 feet. We decided to come down the 2 feet, make that a quaint bathroom. You know, we're not creating a third floor. We're making a third floor that's livable. So then it would have been more massive. The other thing is, even though it's a modified foursquare, to me it can be a little bit eclectic. It's a little bit different element, but it's tied together with the roof just by the crown, by the frieze board, by the material itself. And to me, I'd rather see that, and it's the least intrusive massing by not going to a hip roof. And on the other side, again, as I showed you that building section, or I don't know if I have to go back again, let me see. Oop, okay. It is, oop, no, don't do that. So what I'm doing by popping this up the 2 or 3 feet is I'm getting enough headroom, as you can see here, to get up here. I'm keeping it way lower, and although, you know, probably most architects would not show it, you know, this high as you could, because I don't think you would ever make it look good. I think you can see that we've already made the effort to bring it down. And on this one, if I hipped it, my plate height would have to be all the way up to here, and I would have to have a very either a shallow gable or a shallow hip. And then all of a sudden, it's like, what am I trying to do with these hip roofs? You know, it's like it wants to be something different just because form follows function. I have to get up. It's almost like going up an escalator, you know, in the subway or whatever. That roof follows you as you go up, and that's the same thing that's happening here with that dormer. And the other thing that you should think about as you look at the front of the house is when you're looking at it, when you're right on the same side of the block, when you're looking up, from this elevation, this was generated by the computer. I didn't do it. They did a nice rendering, but it was computer generalized. You don't see the other dormer at all. So it's like you really would have to be standing all the way across the property line to see both dormers at the same time. But those dormers are back from the hip roof. They're in the middle of the house. And so as you go away, those dormers lose significance, and the massing is cut even further. And then the second thing is that when you're standing at the property, at the street, right at the curb, and you're looking up, and then that view, when you see all those elevations, you don't see that sliver or triangles as an elevation. You never see it that way. And your eye is always moving, and you would have to be focusing up there to see those. You're going to notice it. You're going to say, wow. You might not even say, wow. You're going to see it, but at the end of the day, it's something that's going to say, that was a mistake. Why did they do it that way? And it's not.
Well, the dormer on the other side, the dormer that's in the rendering is very clear in terms of how it's handled with the trim following parallel to the other eaves and so on. What about the one on the other side? Does it have a corresponding trim piece because it's a different, it's a much bigger dormer? Yeah, this one.
This is the same. Like I said before, what I tried to do on this elevation is have the overhang continue through and break the roof, break the roof line again. So for the front elevation, I'm really kind of breaking that massing. If you're looking at it just from the elevation perspective. From the side elevation, on the one side, in the rear yard, as you look at it, the fireplace chimney and all that kind of cuts it. But you can see here, there's only a certain amount of dormer that's showing. I tried to say, okay, let's bring it lower, but I can't do that because then I don't have the headroom to get up. I could bring it down 6 inches, but that's as far as I can bring it down and still have the headroom to get up into that space. And again, it's the least intrusive dormer, and it's consistent with the other side. It's consistent in its detailing, the use of the cedar shingles, the reality is we're building a house here. When they built those houses in the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, and when they did the 4 squares, they had attic space. It was storage. When you have a piece of property that is a certain, and I know dollar amounts don't get into it, but when you have a certain amount that you're investing in a property, well, it's a homeowner, it's a developer, or anything like that, you want it as big as houses as you can get. And I think one of the really nice things about this house is it's very simple. It's elegant, but it's simple. It fits in with the context of the neighborhood, and it hides itself well. But to say that because I can't have that dormer, you're saying that I can't have that extra square footage. I can't have that, that additional space. And again, it's not a third floor we're adding. We're adding livable space within an attic space. Because you can see from the building sections, we have 8-foot ceilings, we have 4-foot knee walls. It really is a place where you throw a kid up there because you don't want to have to deal with him. He's happy because he's 13 or 14 years old, and he doesn't want to deal with his mom and dad. And the other thing is an office to get away from the rest of them. I mean, I have 5 kids, and you need space to get away from people. Or you need, if you're a pack rack, you store stuff up there. But you want to go up there, and you're not going to have a pull-down ladder to do it. So again, I try to be sensitive not only to the neighborhood, to the marketplace, to if this was my house and I was going to move in there. In fact, my wife has looked at it and she says, well, why can't we move there? And I thought, it's too much money. So at the end of the day, I think what I'm proposing is we didn't get from just showing this. I met with Kathy. She made a lot of great comments. I revised it. I sent it to her. She made more comments. She was happy with some of the things she did. She highlighted a few things that she still has concern with. And more or less she told me, well, justify it. And I'm here justifying what I've done. But it went through 3 or 4 revisions before I was happy to show it to Jamie. Jamie got his hands onto it, and then we worked back and forth. And we've worked with Kathy and made changes as we've gotten to this point. Like the front porch, it was an elliptical front porch. It was copper roof. Kathy said, that's not simple enough. You want to kind of scale it back. And, she was right. So at the end of the day, I think we've listened to her. We've worked through the process. And I think what I'm presenting is appropriate.
Thank you.
Thanks.
There was also a comment in the staff report about the driveway to the east would probably be best to have a curb along there for drainage. Is the petitioner willing to put that in as well? Okay, great. I guess my only question, back to the garage and pulling it off pulling it to the south in the neighborhood. I don't know if you could show us the section of the garage that would be facing to the north, to the neighbor to the north. I think it's just a straight section. There it is right there.
Yeah, there's no-
I'm a bit concerned about that in that the neighbor to the north is right there, has windows overlooking this property and is right on top of it, and they're going to get a big view of that as their view from their bedroom, kitchen. I'm not sure what the use is there, but there's definitely windows overlooking that right there. And I'm thinking that's probably why the city was concerned about moving that back. So again, I'll ask the question, would you be willing to push that garage to the south 3 to 5 feet?
After reviewing Kathy's comments and staff, my concern, I think, goes along with Mike as far as bringing it forward and compromising the backyard. So I am a little bit concerned because we are trying to create a little bit of a turnaround area there for someone to get in and out. Obviously, the lots are narrow, so we are a little bit concerned about how a car is going to get in and out of that area. And I think every little bit helps. And I think that 3 feet, whether it's brought forward from a landscaping standpoint, I don't really think it's going to make that much of a difference, to be honest with you. So we would prefer to keep it where it is at the 5-foot setback. I don't think that 3 feet is going to make that much of a difference at all.
I was just saying, maybe you could bring up your site plan again and show us how much room you have there between, could you show us a site plan of where the garage is and the house? Because it looks like there's quite a bit of room between the garage and the house right now as planned.
No, I'll show you the...
Excuse me, and I will say I'm not opposed to within that 5-foot area to add some type of landscaping, which I think, as Mike pointed out, arborvitaes could be added to help soften that area a little bit. But I think if you look to the neighbor to the west, I believe, and I could be wrong, maybe Kathy, you may know this, whether or not that garage to the west is even closer to the property line than what we're proposing.
Kathy, is there enough room with where he has the garage now to plant arborvitae?
The city arborist's opinion was that 5 feet will be difficult to get something to thrive. Is it a critical issue? I think anytime you have zoning of different densities in close proximity, you have windows from living space that would look down. Ideally, you'd have enough room for vegetation. Even 2 feet could help to give some additional space. Just a recommendation from the city arborist. It certainly isn't a critical issue. That obviously will not impact the streetscape. It will impact the future owner of this property, and it will impact someone living behind, but it won't be visible to the general public along the streetscape. So again, just recommendation.
So how many feet do you think there is between the garage as cited now and the rear of the house?
I'd say probably 35. That's my best guess.
Okay. Okay. That's it for me for questions. Anybody else have any other further questions to the petitioner or staff at this point? Okay. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, guys.
Kathy, I'm sorry. Looking at the site plan, in the version that I'm looking at, it suggests that there's 5 feet between where the garage is now and the property line. Am I reading that correctly?
This is the property line, and then this is I think the silt fence? Construction fence?
Just to be clear, the garage does meet the minimum required setbacks.
Well, my only question is, to their point about planting something in that space, I mean, it's 5 feet, seems like a pretty sizable distance to grow.
Again, the city arborist always, his experience is that within 5 feet, things may thrive, they may not thrive. Certainly, if it's 5 feet, we will work with the petitioner to make sure the landscape plan shows plantings there, and perhaps we can get some kind of a bond over time that there would need to be some replacement over the first 3 years or something. Again, just his recommendation that if we really do want to have a landscape buffer there, it should be a little greater than 5 feet, but not, as issues go, not a critical issue.
Do you have any sense for the other garages that are there, what the setback is for those?
I think in that area, you have many non-conforming garages. You have some that may be 2 feet. And I think that we have seen some conflicts between, along those back property lines, so I think that was part of the reason for the recommendation to look forward and say, okay, if we are going to do something new here, bring in a new family, hopefully we can make those relationships better instead of continuing things that have been problems in the past.
We got a couple more questions.
Yeah, Russ, go ahead.
You had mentioned one of your shortcomings is not reflecting gutters. I don't recall if you mentioned what the materials are for the gutters and downspouts. They're not on your material
I'm sorry.
selection sheet.
They'd be aluminum,
What color?
white, right?
Either the white or the bronze.
The windows are white?
Yeah, the windows are white.
And what is the soffit material?
Cedar, smooth cedar.
Like a plywood? Yes. Okay, and last question on the east elevation, that hip dormer. I think it's the only window in the house that has a shutter.
Oh, okay.
What's the thought behind that?
That's pretty good. Oh, sorry.
I mean, was it lonely?
No, oh, you know what? Before one of the iterations, okay, I'm admitting to even being less perfect. That window was off-centered, so I used the shutter as a way to make everything look centered in the dormer space. So now that the window's back to being centered, I don't have to have the shutter. So I forgot to take it off. I mean, it can stay there, but I really don't have shutters anywhere else except for the front. And that was one of the comments that Kathy made. It was before we had a lot of shutters and it was too busy. And, you know, the one good thing about design is it's not what you put on the paper, it's what you take off.
Thank you.
Any other questions, gentlemen? Okay. Now's a chance for anybody from the public to come up if they have anybody wants to testify. Okay. Come on forward. Yeah, please both come on up if you want. Please just step up to the microphone. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michael Smith and reside at 134 Atteridge, which is the property directly to the east that we're talking about.
Wanda Marinik, I also live in that house.
And we just wanted to ask questions about how the water is I'm going to suggest it's a substantial issue for the area, because as it showed on your elevation, at that point where the house is, and as it escalates to a 4% grade downhill there. And so that there is a lot of water from the current existing property, the way that the downspouts go, it has hit the house and it's undermined the garage, the sidewalk, and the driveway from the water flow that flows to the east. With if you go back to the site map on showing or if you just refer to the site map, the driveway runs within 1 foot along the property line. Currently, that expands the amount of dry space that water will flow. And then if you look to the backyard area where the garage is, where you have the driveway area entering the garage, that's a substantially more surface covered with asphalt, which mitigates the drainage there. So we'll be getting, currently as water flows down, our backyard pools and forms a pond, and then at some point it goes in and it floods into the neighbor to our east and floods their driveway and runs into their garage, making their garage unusable at that time. So what we would like to do is see that some sort of drainage mitigation is addressed. The curb that you mentioned may do that. I don't know how that works, but in some way to reduce the flow of water rather than elevate the flow of water by adding the asphalt.
Okay.
I'm sure the engineers can do it, and I'm sure it can be done. We don't have any opposition to the project itself.
Are
It's
the
beautiful.
downspouts into drain tile? Are the downspouts tied to the storm?
No.
Not as of right now.
Kathy, any comments to that or thoughts?
We can certainly note your concerns for the city engineer and make sure that when final engineering plans come in, they go out to your property and understand your concerns. A curb is one way that has been successfully used to mitigate. Whether that's the right solution here or not, I'm not sure, but we certainly can highlight your concerns.
Okay.
There's also just one other issue between 134, which is to the east, and 128, which is the new house. There is maybe about a 4-foot section of grass, and it seems as though, and it's kind of split down the middle, and there are two plantings. There is, there's a large bush type of thing, which is very attractive, that I planted, and then there's also a serviceberry that I planted about 10 years ago. And it's grown into a beautiful specimen. And by them taking the driveway, those will have to be removed. Is that just, will those be replaced, or can they be moved by, is that my responsibility or our responsibility, or what will happen there?
Are they in the parkway, or are they on your property, or?
They're on my property, but they, have grown, and they're kind of grown into their property now. One of them has, the more beautiful one.
We can certainly have the city arborist look at that and work with Mr. Child's landscape architect and
Okay,
talk with you about a solution.
all right. Okay,
Okay,
I think,
thank you.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other thoughts on the public testimony at all? In particular, maybe the drainage issue, if,
I'm sure that Jamie and the city will be able to work hand in hand and make sure that the right thing is done by not only this property, but the property owners to the east.
okay.
So,
Okay, thank you. Any final questions from the board to the petitioner or staff? Okay, at this point then, we'll take it to our internal board review, and Ross, if you want to start off and give us your thoughts on the project?
Overall, I think the home has a nice character, fits the culture and the nature of the street setting. I believe it's got pleasing materials that work well together, and the the overall scale. I think it's all thoughtfully designed. I have one key concern, which we discussed, and that is the massing, the attic, the roof massing on the east and west side. It is visible from the street as well. So to me, that's a significant issue. I know that it allows a couple hundred feet of attic space to be utilized in lieu of just a crouch attic, but it concerns me. That massing, I think, is out of character for the street and poses a problem for me. I know you're still under bulk by a little bit. Frankly, I'd rather see the home grow slightly as a footprint to increase, to meet the bulk, the allowable bulk, than have that space in the attic.
Okay. Ted?
Well, I certainly feel that the conditions qualifying for demolition have been satisfied. I also wrestled with the third floor. It's a very narrow space with limited headroom, and while I can certainly appreciate having the extra space in terms of trying to make it a more livable space, I just see with the limited headroom up there, it being a very difficult space to exist in, whether it's for the office or the bedroom that you've proposed. I'd really be more inclined to say, try and come up with a plan that does not need the dormer space. I'm not all that opposed to the dormer space, but I think without it would certainly clean up elevation lines as well. I certainly would like to make sure that the city recognizes the concerns of the neighbors in terms of drainage, to make sure that every effort that can possibly be made to avoid any negative impact on the neighbor, particularly to the east, be made. In terms of the setback of the garage to allow for vegetation and year-round a buffer between the subject house and the multifamily property to the north, I really like the idea of giving the subject property owner as much backyard space as possible, and of keeping the garage where they're requesting it be situated. I'm fine with that, but to the extent you can put that year-round vegetation in that limited space, and if it's a matter of making the city arborist more comfortable that there be a bond that you suggested, I would propose that maybe that be the solution that makes everybody happy and has a solution that's a win-win for both sides of the property line. That's all I have.
Okay, great. Michael?
Well, I think it's a very nice design. I think it fits the neighborhood very nicely. I think that the materials are fitting for the neighborhood. Concerning the dormers, when I originally looked at the plan, I thought that they were large. But then after going out to the site and visiting it and looking at the other houses on the street, there's a number of houses that are similar, and I don't have that concern as much as I did earlier. I think they're fine. In terms of the garage siding, I kind of agree with Ted. I think that the backyard might be a little bit better for this house with the garage siding as it is. Drainage is a concern, as it is always on these tight lots. The curb is a good solution to start, but you ultimately have to get the water somewhere. So I think that it looks like you break the grade sort of in the midpoint of the house or something like that, where the drainage going towards Atteridge will get to the street, but I think we really have to be sensitive about the drainage going to the back by the garage, and if there's a way to capture that in the storm sewer and also the downspouts and the sump pump, that would be a
Into
really
the
helpful.
storm, right?
Storm sewer?
That downspouts into the storm?
Yep,
would help
downspouts into the
dramatically.
storm, sump pump in the storms, and do whatever you can to help the situation and not make it any worse. That's all I have.
Okay, great. Fred?
Yes, well, I think the house is really very nicely designed with respect to the streetscape and surrounding houses, picks up the character of them very well, and it's a great improvement over the house that sits there today. So, and my first impression visiting the site was what a shame to lose those trees in the back, the 4 30-inch trees. And then, of course, the report came in that they are not the best condition or species representatives at this stage, because they're actually the greatest landscaping in the area in terms of visual on the horizon in that area. But given the justification for the removal, that I think goes away as a concern. The sloped eaves hasn't been mentioned, but your roof coming down with a hip and then the slope at the edge really is charming. I think that's just excellent. It gives a nice warm feeling about the entire massing and feel of the house. The dormers, attracted my attention. That's why I asked the questions at first, because they beg a question. They grab you and they say, well, is that okay or not okay? You use the word idiosyncrasy, not with respect to them, but to something else in your presentation. And so I've been trying on the idea that they fit within the definition of idiosyncrasy. And I'm getting comfortable with that. I think there's room for some idiosyncrasy and a massing of this style. With respect to the garage, moving the garage further to the south will, of course, also reduce the landscaping of the owner's rear yard. In other words, it's a gain for the people who are to the north in terms of the green space that they would benefit from, but it's at the cost of reducing the green space for the owner of the house. The garage and the related driveway simply move south, so there's less yard in the backyard. I think that's maybe not a fair trade-off when it's your property. What I would wonder, and I'm not an arborist, but with respect to the chair's first comment about the view that people will have of the back of a garage, I'd wonder whether applying a lattice work to that back face that would grow vines, which even if the vines aren't growing would be a lattice work that they would look at rather than a blank garage wall, might be considered, and by the arborist too, as to whether, because again, what's the ability for something to grow on it, and over what period of the year will it be something attractive? But I would suggest even having a lattice work on it would suggest that there was an intent to make something that is visually attractive, rather than just here's the back of our garage and we don't expect you to look at it, which you are. So I think that maybe increasing the treatment back there might, embellishing it might be a good gesture. And it's a gesture that would not require more space, as in move the garage. So that's overall my thoughts. I think it's very nicely done.
Great, okay. Well, I echo the thoughts. It's a really nice looking project. I think it's fitting of the neighborhood, great materials, and will be an improvement for that neighborhood. So in general, I'm very supportive of the project. The massing seems to be kind of half and half here. Some folks are bothered, some are not. I'm kind of in the camp to the guys to my left here that at first blush I'm okay with it. I do think we've talked a lot from the front of the house, the massing. When you look at that from some of the side angles, the right and left, I think that's going to be a lot of roof line and massing as well. But with that being said, I do appreciate the needs to have as much space as possible in these projects, and there was some creativity and thought behind these things. So, all things being equal, I think I can look past that, and I've been the one most vocally opposed to the garage siting and the need to move it south. And again, when I was out there at the site, that neighbor to the north is looking right down at the garage. Their windows are overlooking that directly to the south. And again, just having a blank garage there, balancing the needs of your space and their space, I really still would like to see that thing moved 3 feet. It would actually help drainage as well, because you reduce the amount of asphalt and driveway by moving that as well. So I'm still firmly in the camp that should go south at a minimum 3 feet. Sounds like I maybe do not have a majority in that, but that's my 2 cents. So that being said, all things being equal, gentlemen, I think we have general approval here for this thing. The massing, I think we've got 3 guys that are probably willing to live with that massing, so to go over that concern. But want to make sure we have some consensus here that we can move forward with this. Okay.
Well,
Yep. Okay.
How do you feel about the garage siding then?
Yeah, I guess garage siding, it sounded like I was the only one that was really concerned with that location, but I'll throw it out there again. Do we want to make that a necessary, moving it 3 feet to the south as part of this approval or not? And again, I'll leave it to the majority of the board to decide that.
Well, I personally agree that there should be masking. I think everybody here is on board with that. I don't think we need to move the garage to accomplish that. And that's where I'm falling. We can achieve both without having to move it.
and having had some experience with the buildings to the north, I know firsthand that the detached garages along that side of Atteridge are consistent with what is being proposed here.
Okay.
I still retain some concern over the side elevation of the roof massing though up in the dormers in the attic, and I prefer to see some adjustment to those if possible, but beyond that, I'm fully supportive.
Okay. Gentlemen, you guys would approve as is, subject to the staff comments? With the massing, or?
I would.
You would? Okay. So I think we should move that, make a motion to move that, subject to the,
So the staff comment was asking for the garage to be moved, and I don't think we were.
okay, I'm sorry,
supportive.
you're right, yep. And then I think one key element was the curb as well, Mike?
Addressing the drainage
Yeah, yeah,
with, hopefully, if you can tie into the storm sewer and
okay.
take care of it.
Okay, well, I think we're coalescing around that. I think we should take it to a vote and see where we end up, provided we get a motion.
Demo.
Yeah, and I guess the first order of business is the demo.
Make a motion to approve the demolition as presented.
Okay,
A second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, demolition's been approved. And then a replacement structure?
I make a motion to approve the replacement structure, subject to the comments by the board, and with staff looking into the drainage, or having the city engineer address the drainage
Okay.
comments.
A second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I will say, Mr. Moyer, that was a great suggestion, and I'll work with staff to complete some kind of class elements so that we can achieve some kind of higher end of
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is consideration of a request of approval for a new residence and detached garage located at 347 Bluffs Edge Drive, and approval of the overall site plan and conceptual landscape plan. The owner is Thomas F. Fuller Trust, Thomas F. Fuller trustee, and the representative is Fred Polito. Before we begin, anybody have a conflict of interest with this?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recuse myself from this petition because of a conflict in working on this project.
Okay, duly noted. Mr. Bleck will be sitting this one out.
Kathy, how do we get this projector to work? Well, good evening. Thank you for your time tonight in reviewing our petition to build this new residence. I'm John Whitrock with J. Timothy Builders. We're a design build firm operating out of the Lake Geneva area. On this project, we're working with a local architect, Fred Polito. Back in 2010, we built a home for the homeowner on Lake Geneva, and so he's hired us to build this home as well because he wanted to bring in some of the same features he had and the overall experience with doing it. With the house, we have several different materials to break up the facade. We have the stone that runs continuous around the entire perimeter, which was trying to stay on the same plane all the way through the home and be continuous. The siding is a shingle-sided house that carries through with the shingle-style design. The roof is a standing seam metal roof, and I have a picture of the home that we built for him in Lake Geneva that has the same roof that we would be presenting to put onto this home. That's the front elevation. And the rear elevation of it. When I went in and met with Kathy, she had voiced it would be a good idea to put together a massing model because of the complexity of the project. Which we have done. I don't know if you guys want me to pass this around for you or. One very important thing to keep in consideration when you're looking at that is you're looking at it as a bird's eye view. So that would be a helicopter, airplane, majority of from the street elevation or from the lake, you'll only be looking at one side of that at a time, which will reduce some of that complexity of it. Her other advice was to make the dormers more uniform, which we tried to incorporate, and to simplify, which we try to simplify a couple of dormers. We removed some radius details off of the east elevation of it. Here's a rendering of the east elevation. And once again, we're trying to carry through a lot of the same details through. There are some minor details that are hard to pick up on drawings, such as the termination of the stone to the siding. Instead of doing a traditional limestone sill, we're actually going to take the shingles and radius that back to the wall, which is a design element of the shingle style. And then also in the upper windows of the gables, those windows are recessed from that wall, allowing us to create a radius return in those shingles going back to kind of marry that design of what we're doing on the lower side and bringing it up. The stone that was selected is a Wisconsin field stone, which is in front of us there. The siding, if you want, I can pass around a sample of that, and the trim. And this is also the roof
So the siding is which?
The siding would be the greener one, the larger sample.
Siding?
The shingle siding, and
And
that's
this-
all your exterior trim. So that would be your fascia, soffit, window trims.
Corner boards, if there are any?
Corner boards will be mitered shingles going back.
And the greening in, what is the green?
That would be the siding.
Where is the siding?
The siding is on the drawing, all the areas that are
So the
shaded here.
Again, the shingle siding or no?
Correct. It's all, the only siding that's on the house is the shingles. It's all shingles.
Okay.
And then out on this property, we're also proposing a boathouse as well. It will benefit the owner as far as being able to use the lake because of the terrain, the steepness of the bluff. It's very difficult to get down to there. So once they're down there, they want to be able to enjoy it. But once again, the architectural details are carry through with what with the house, so it matches. Well, if you guys have any questions.
In general, is that boathouse going to match materials, color of the main house?
Yeah, it will be
is the thought?
identical.
Okay, great. And was that shown on the site plan anywhere? I don't know if I could see it.
He has it listed as proposed. I guess initially, right now, we're looking at trying to get architectural approval because there's more things involved with because of the bluff, trying to do the engineering on that, and then also with the state. So we're looking just to get the architectural approval, so then we can move forward with
Corps of
investing.
Engineers?
Well, Mr. Shabika will be able to add to that. He's been retained to help us on this project.
Okay.
Good evening, gentlemen. John Shabika with Shabika and Associates. We do all the coastal engineering and permitting for this. The structure itself only requires a permit through the city of Lake Forest due to its elevation. Any accessibility for the boathouse, such as things like if we put a ramp in or stairs or anything like that, fall under the state and federal jurisdiction, which currently is 6 state and federal agencies. These have been permitted before in Lake Forest and all along Illinois, so I have no concerns with the permittability of the access.
Question?
Sure.
If I could ask a question, I know of your credentials, John, and they're impeccable. My question is there precedent for boathouses on Lake Michigan? I've been boating there for like 6 decades, and I don't remember, the lake is ferocious, as you well know, in the winter, and eats up everything in its path, which includes the shore.
Yep.
So I think it would include boathouses, too.
Well, there are several boathouses in Lake Forest, and there are 16 total in Illinois. Part of the reason I've been retained is, one, architects have a tendency to think that boathouses should be wet boathouses, like you would build in an inland lake. And Lake Michigan is not the environment for that. And the other thing is they retain us to work with them from a coastal engineering standpoint to determine and help mitigate any potential risk with that fluctuating lake level. So we have done bathymetric surveys to 1,000 feet offshore on this site to determine what the wave conditions are. And part of siting that boathouse will be based on kind of final approval and then where is the most appropriate place on that site to protect the boathouse so it won't be damaged by storm waves. And the storm we had on Halloween of last year set records along southern Illinois and Lake Michigan. So needless to say, we take that into the design considerations.
And being not a wet boathouse, there would be some means of trailering or rolling a boat down to the lake and retrieving it.
There's a couple of different ways. One of the most popular ways is a device called the beach launcher. It is a hydraulically powered trailer that has the ability to self-propel itself. We don't do things like rail systems where it's like a fixed car or any of those. They do not have the tendency to be able to survive the fluctuating lake levels.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Great. Thank you very much. I think we got a little ahead of ourselves here, but we're some very interesting project, needless to say. But perhaps we should go back to the staff report, Kathy, and your comments on the project.
Sure. Just a little background. This property was before the Building Review Board a number of years ago. The demolition was approved, different owner. A replacement structure was built. That owner lost the property. Over a number of years, the house that was on the property, although we wouldn't normally permit demolition in advance of the replacement structure, the house did become bank-owned. There were a number of police calls to the house. There was flooding of the house. There were broken windows, all sorts of issues. So it did become a health and life safety issue. The city did require the bank to demolish that house with the understanding that when a new owner stepped in and a replacement house was brought forward, it would come before the board. So just an explanation of why this is a little different.
What year is the current structure, was it built?
The
so
existing
that's-
house has been demolished on the site.
Has been
The city did require it to be demolished. Again, this is a new owner, so we were dealing with a bank-owned property at that time.
Okay.
So the house, if you remember, it had a black wall.
Right. That's,
And it was in severe disrepair. So again, a unique situation. Just wanted to give you a little background. So this really is coming to you as a fresh petition. It is a replacement house. It is not considered a vacant property, so it doesn't trigger impact fees because it is a replacement house. But your role is you don't need to address the demolition because that's happened. So I just wanted to provide that background. This house is sited a considerable distance from the front property line. It does allow quite an area for landscaping. This street tends to be landscape dominant for the most part. This site, although it's a large site, there is some limitation on square footage because only 50% of the land area along the bluff is counted into the square footage. We did calculate the building scale, including the proposed boathouse, and what is presented to you is in compliance with the regulations. So if just the house is built, the boathouse, I think, is about 1,000 square feet, more or less. So the house itself is actually considerably under bulk. Shingle style is appropriate. Materials also seem to be appropriate in coloring. It really is a house that could settle fairly quietly onto this site. The east elevation in particular provides a number of windows to take advantage of the views of the lake. There are many parts of this that are very consistent dormers, consistent windows. Interested in the board comments on a few of the elements. The house does, the ends of the house on the front elevation do come forward, and you have some large shed dormers. Interested in your comments on those. There are also a couple elements at either end, the north and south end of the rear elevation. It's not unusual for a shingle-style home to have some unique idiosyncrasies, to use a word from Board Member Moyer. So those may be okay, but just wanted to acknowledge that there are some different elements and looking to you to see if you want any refinement. Staff does recommend approval of the project with any comments from the board. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Kathy. Okay. Chance now for the board to have questions of the petitioner or staff. And Fred, why don't I start with you this time? Give you a chance to lead off.
Well, we're in questions rather than comments.
Yes,
right?
questions.
Well,
questions.
I don't have further questions right now.
You don't? Okay, great. Ted?
Honestly, I don't have any myself either. Well, actually, I do. The one, I didn't see any plans that described how the living space of the boathouse is intended to be laid out. And I understand that you're just presenting the overall design concept at this point, but can you describe, are we talking, is there going to be a bathroom? Is it multiple rooms? Is it just one big open party room? Or if you give us a sense.
Well, let me open that page here. Down which would be the basement level, would be the storage for the water and boat stuff. There is a bathroom that's planned for that, and then the entire upstairs area is basically like a small kitchenette, but just one large room for entertaining. No bedrooms. That's not for habitation.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. Ross?
So the roof is standing seam throughout, correct?
Correct.
And is it 24 or 12-inch centers?
It would be 24-inch.
Okay. The overview reflects 12-inch. February 9th. And the gutters are, so there's a, discrepancy there. The gutters are scheduled to be aluminum, matching the trim color?
Correct. Yeah, they would be a half round with a round downspouts, which would be go along with that style of architecture.
Is there any consideration for copper?
Well, there's no other copper elements in there, so we don't really want the gutters to become an accent, and so that's why we would try to keep it with the same trim color.
The cedar shingles, those are Shakertown, so those are panels.
You can do full panels, or what this would be individual courses. We like this.
What individual course?
Well, so instead of being a panel of 3 or 4, it's one row at a time. It's 7-inch exposure, and they're 8 foot long. Is how they come. We like that material over going with traditional cedar shingles. It's gives it a much more of a strength because it's fully adhesive to the plywood backer, and then it keeps it from splitting and cupping over time.
So there's actually quite a lot of aesthetics to consider here with the boathouse, and unlike most settings that we review, this actually has a prominent view from the east as well, from the rear. So I think that should be a considerable focus of ours as well. And speaking of which, please explain the premise behind the bay on the northeast rear and the introduction of that style on this home.
Well, it falls through with the shingle style. A lot of times there'll be interesting shapes, cupolas that can come into it. It really is a draw from the design requirement from the client, as he likes to have. He doesn't like straight walls. He likes to have some rooms that have character. So when you're walking through the various rooms, you get a different feeling when you walk into that. And with that shape, that'll really help with the views as well, because you'll be able to capture it from all angles.
Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Fred. Yeah.
Yes, I do have a question that I forgot to bring up. The wood fence to the north of the north edge of the property, does that belong to the neighbor to the north, or is that part of this property?
No, it belongs to the neighbor to the north.
Okay, thank you.
A few questions. Kath, first one's to you, Kathy. The metal seam roof, I gotta be honest with you, I've been on the board for 6 years. I'm not sure if we've ever been asked to approve one of these, and is that fine by the city standards? I think it's in keeping with this house style, but care to comment on that at all?
There are a few metal standing seam roofs in the community, and it is an appropriate roof for a shingle style. So there's would be nothing in the code. It is considered an appropriate material. It isn't a synthetic material.
What about the width of the panels?
I guess I would look to the board for input on that. We don't have that much experience with it. So interested in your comments on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking to go a little bit wider because the seams become visual. And so if you get too much, we don't want it to look busy. And the other reason with the steel roof, the client, he really likes the steel roofs. But it's also just to break up the materials with all this shingle siding, and then all of a sudden put shingles on the roof. It's just a lot of shingles.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Maybe focusing on the front facade to start would be the west facade. Curious, the materials, looks like you have kind of a railing in front on either side of the front door. What are the materials of the patio that you got there, the railing there?
It would be constructed out of cedar, so we maintain the same look of the exterior trim.
Okay. It's kind of tough to tell. I was looking at the rendering actually on the front side, your color rendering. The windows seem to have the different lights and number of lights in each one of them. You go from a 4 light to 3 to 6 to 2, and is that by design, or should there be a little bit more conformity on some of these windows on their lights?
Let me pull up the...
Again, what I was looking at in my package here is the color rendering.
Yeah, that's...
And I'm not sure if that matches actually the what your intent is or not. I'm not sure if that matches that even.
Yeah, there's the architectural drawing of it. Majority of all the lights are the same. If there's more, it would just probably because if it was a wider window.
So is the intent then to have consistency amongst the number of lights in the windows?
Most definitely, yes.
Okay. We talked a little bit about the kind of the gazebo element on the northeast side. Could we go over the southwest corner behind the house where you've got kind of cantilever situation and also kind of this abrupt, a very vertical element on the very southeast corner. You can kind of see it on the side of the screen now there, which is kind of a 2-story, just kind of straight down element. I'm kind of curious what the thought was behind that side of the house. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Well, it's just a matter of matching plate heights because in the back we're working off of the 2-story plate height, and then versus in the front we're coming off, the roof is starting off at the first floor.
So is that a column then underneath the cantilevered situation? There's a column there that's kind of supporting that second story element to the right there?
Yes, there's a small column right there because it's you have you created a covered porch right there.
Huh. So that's a porch, a usable porch underneath there is the
correct
spot there. And what's that column material? Is that cedar as well, or?
Correct. All
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's all I've got, guys. Any other questions at all? Sure. Okay. All right. Now's a chance from anyone from the public to come up to testify if they'd like to. Okay. Seeing none. Any other comments, Kathy, on this or thoughts at all? Okay. Now a chance for us to talk about this internally. our internal board review. And Fred, we'll start with you, I guess, and what do you think about the project?
Well, I think the general character is very pleasing, and in terms of the choice of materials and the shingle style, in a sense, if it's a stretch of a term style a bit, but for the setting and location, I think is very appropriate. The problem areas that I have, and they're confirmed by my site visits, they're walking the site, have to do with the form. By the form, I mean the shape of the floor plan, the way in which it has been splayed on each side, which, looking only at the floor plan, one would think that that is to obtain increased terrific views at a lakefront site. That would be what it conveys when you look at the plan and say, well, this was done to get some great views. But what I find is that the views are not great on either the north or south. To the north, it's a great view of a 7-foot or so wood fence that runs the whole other property, and that the angled turreted forms that bump out on that splay only get 1 or 2 good views of all the windows that there are, because those would be the views that don't see the fence, that despite the splay get a chance to look out to the lake. There's only one of those. And then to the south, all the views are really of the house to the south, just because of the setback of the house on the property. Not to say that it shouldn't be set back, or that it could be put up further on the bluff, which it can't go to the edge of the bluff, of course. But those would be attempts to make the form work. Getting it up where the lake, where you have opportunity to see the lake instead of the house next door. So the form as set up right now conveys an intent to want to see the house to the south, because it's doing a great job of that, and it's not seeing the lake. I'm also struck by having a property on the lake's edge that has 2 guest bedrooms and a billiard room and so on, with light wells on the side that faces the lake. You would look for light wells on some urban inner city property, maybe where it's the only place you can get light because there's no chance to see anything. And here you've got Lake Michigan out there.
That would be the lower level.
Well, it could mean the room's in a different place too, than down in the basement where it needs a light well and can't get the benefit of its location. Then the dormers, a certain amount of the variety in the forms, of course, it comes with the style. That's okay with me. I think that fits. But then there are others I just don't think can come in under that umbrella, namely the big shed roofs on the front. And some of the forms in the back. There's a contrast of some very petite little windows up in the eaves, as it were, and then these big bomb dormers, which I think are just out of character with other forms in the building. And there's certainly a lot of forms, but repetition of form is working for you most of the time. But these are not repetitious of anything else there. They're just big sheds on the front of the house. So the first item, the form of the house, doesn't. That just sits with me as a huge problem. And the rest, of course, you don't. If the form of the house is a problem, you don't want to rearrange the ornaments on the Christmas tree if it's not the right Christmas tree. Or Hanukkah tree.
Okay, yeah, understood. Yeah.
That's the case may be.
I mean, once you have to remember too, when you're looking out there, that lot is very spacious. Yeah. And so when you're standing at a window, you're not just, if the wall is splayed a certain way, you're not fixed at looking at that way. Your eyes are looking, from all directions.
No, I hear what you're saying, but after you put this new house on the lot, it's not as spacious anymore, and the space between you and the neighbors is not that great. And irrespective of the distance between you and the neighbors, that's what you're looking at, the neighbors.
Sure. And we'll just, this is an internal board discussion. We appreciate the comment, but really, unless we have questions for you, we just talk amongst ourselves. So, all right, Fred, anything else? Those are your comments? Okay, great. Ted?
I honestly did not have really any issues with the design. It's certainly a very interesting design. You have a lot going on, but the site has a fair amount of privacy, and so I think that gives you a certain degree of latitude to do many of the things you want. I think the use of the light wells in the basement is a great way to make the basement a much more usable space, and so I completely understand the need for that, and the fact that you're not going to have views of the lake from a basement space. I get that. The only other thing that was brought up that I wanted to comment on is the question over the width of the standing seam on the roof. You're talking about a very large roof area, and I can understand why you wouldn't want to go with something as narrow as 12 inches. I think that would be overwhelming in terms of the repetition of the seam line, and whether that's 24 inches or 18 inches, I'd leave that to the designer's eye in terms of whether they think whatever that width is, that it is appropriate. In any event, the long and short is I'm supportive of the plan. I don't have anything that I felt you missed or needed to revisit, and I support.
Great. Ross?
Well, I have a number of concerns. To piggyback, Charlie, on the issue you brought up, which is that south elevation. It's a stark wall, and it's visible from Bluff's edge. And then Fred's point about the dormers, those front elevation dormers as well are stark to a degree. And then, of course, I do have a problem with the dissimilar. It's completely dissimilar. The rear circular roof structure. To me, that there's no basis for that. There's no grounding for it. It looks as though it grew and appeared there, and it is exposed to the east. The stone is, I think it lacks its location, the way it's massing. Frankly, it lacks imagination. It's quite a bit of horizontal structure, and the downspouts, as are reflected on the elevation, will need to be cut over the stone, over the sill on top of the stone in every location. You might consider bumping the wall out above the stone so that the downspouts are flush. It's a different look. It's more costly, I recognize. I recognize Shakertown is a more stable product, absolutely. But the stability to me is the downfall of it, because one of the reasons you use cedar shake siding is for the character and the aging of it, and the cupping and the twisting and the checking and the splitting, and yeah, you replace a few here and there over time, but the Shakertown eliminates that, and it looks manufactured. So I have a problem with that. And again, to Ted's point, I'm not sure what the appropriate width of, the best width of the standing seam is. 24, is it 18? I'm not sure that 12 would be overwhelming. I actually think you're going with a standing seam roof. Why hide the seams? Why try to minimize the seams, celebrate the seams? But that's something that, in my opinion, should be studied. Those are my thoughts.
Great, okay, thanks, Ross. I think this is a great start. I really, I like the direction this house is going, nice materials. I think it's very becoming in the streetscape and along the lake. I think it's a great start here to this design. I appreciate the petitioners, the massing here. You know, we could have gone up another 10 feet, and this is 10 feet below that, so I think that's great. I think the boathouse actually gonna be a neat structure if and when that can get approved. I do have some concerns, particularly in the back, that, you know, the gazebo design, I understand idiosyncrasies, but it just seems like it was plopped in there, and then you've got the cantilever unit and a lot going on in that back design, that I'm just wondering if we couldn't somehow improve that a little bit. The front looks nice. I think the dormers maybe are a little big in front, so I think there could be a little further refinement here. To Fred's point, you know, the butterfly design, maybe you don't get the best views out of some corners. You know, if you look one way out a window, you're going to see the house to your north or south, but you know, if you look another way, I think you're going to see the lake, and I kind of like that butterfly design personally, so really don't have a problem with that, but just some of the elements, I think there could be some improvements here from my standpoint. So that being said, it sounds like, Fred, you'd like to see some improvements as well to this design before you approve?
Well, yeah, I think, and again, I mentioned the butterfly design, it's just as my observation.
Yeah, sure, no, I understand.
I think, you know, the response to what I was pointing at obviously would be landscaping to buffer the view of the house that you have a lot of windows facing, that type of thing. So there are measures to be taken. I'd like to reinforce Board Member Friedman's comments about the spacing on the roof. I think you might want to look at 18-inch spacing as opposed to 24-inch, because the elevation, the larger spacing almost tends to take it into a commercial look, in my opinion. As, you know, I won't name which commercial, because that would bring with it a lot of baggage that does not apply to your house, so it would be pejorative as a reference. But I think if you look at 18, it might be a more elegant with 18-inch spacings on the standing sea. You might look at that.
Okay. So action here for the board, gentlemen. Ted, it seems like you're on board with this design as is. Ross, I don't know if what you'd like to see here.
I'd like to see some it's to emulate what you said. It's a great start, but I think it needs some embellishments in accordance with some of the suggestions we've made here. Okay.
Fred, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree, and I also forgot to mention that Board Member Friedman's comment about the shakes. I often also agree with. I think if they were a natural product, it would be much more consistent with the reference of the shingle style and so on. So
okay. So with that being said, I agree with Board Member Moyer and Board Member Friedman that I think there could be some improvements here. So I think the next step is probably to continue this petition, allow for some further improvements. Gentlemen, can coalesce around that? Okay. How about a motion for that very thing then?
I'd like to motion that the petitioner reflect on the discussion tonight and the suggestions that were made by the board and the staff, and we revisit this accordingly.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Okay. All right. The petition is continued. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Michael. The next item on the agenda is consideration of a request for approval of a new residential duplex building and a detached garage on a vacant lot at 1439/1441 McKinley Road, and approval of the overall site plan and landscape plan as requested. The owner is PC Equities with Peter Childs, and the representative is Laszlo Simovic, architect. Welcome, gentlemen.
Yes.
right. I'm Michael Kessel. I work for Laszlo Simovic, the architect. I will be walking you through this project. This is for a new 2.5-story frame duplex with attached 2-car garage located at the just shown. Here's a site map. I believe you also have one that was handed out.
Speak up a little bit.
I believe you have a site map that's already been printed out for you, so we'll just go ahead to the rendering.
Yep.
So this is the front facade, which emphasizes the fact that this is a duplex. Both of the units are side by side rather than stacked upon one another. We went through several iterations with the development office about what would be appropriate for this streetscape and in overall terms of scale of the building. We went with a federal style building because this is a side-by-side duplex. The federal style allows you to have a very symmetric design, so that way each side feels as one unit as a whole, but once you're inside of the unit, which you'll see in the floor plans, you have your own individual floor plans that are as open as they can be, with those slots only being 51 feet across. We pushed the garage towards the back of the property so that the car traffic would not dominate the streetscape. We wanted to keep the cars private and provides for some landscape along the front, along with some landscape along the back and a small porch on either side. We added some ornament to the main entry to break up the monolithic nature that federal style buildings tend to have. So this is the empty site plan. You can see that there's some slight grade change across the site. And so proposing that we bring the traffic along the northern edge of the building towards the back, and then we sited it in the middle. The lot is very narrow. We have some wiggle room to move it, as was suggested in the brief we were handed out today. And this is the existing treescape plan. There is one tree at the southwest corner that the arborist determined would be worth saving. And here is the suggested grading and overall landscape plan. We are adding the landscape architect is adding a couple of more smaller elements to the back of the property. So in terms of overall scale along the immediate neighbors, we're pretty much in line. We're a bit taller than our neighbor to the north, but we're a bit shorter than our neighbor to the south. In terms of, there's no one unique vocabulary of the area. It's all eclectic. So we don't feel that a federal style building is out of place. Our neighbor to the immediate north is more modern. The other one is a bit more traditional. So in terms of scale, we have the scale figure to the side. It's a very symmetric front. We had the note that these shutters are to be operable, which we can make allowance for. And the rear has very simple double doors leading out to the back so they can access their backyard and garage. The side elevations are mirrored, or the same. The window placement is dictated by the room use. There's not too much of a view, and the neighbors are fairly close, but we're as close to our lot lines as they are to theirs. So starting in the basement, each unit has a small utility room, one bedroom with an attached bathroom and a rec room. And then the main floor is what we sort of based this on. We wanted to create as much of an open plan as we can, given the limited footprint that we have to work with. So we put a powder room and the staircase in the middle to divide up the space a little bit so they have some determination of what to do with the spaces. A fairly large kitchen and a larger formal living room. And then on the second floor, we have 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, along with a small utility with the additional laundry room. And the roof plan is a simple gable. We originally had some dormers, but they suggested we remove them, so we removed the dormers. And then the garage is a very simple square 24 by 24 footprint to maximize the amount of storage space they have, as well as the maneuverability of fitting a car on the site. And so that, as you can see, our garage you access by turning it in, so you need a fair amount of room to make that turn, which we have accommodated for with additional paving. In terms of the materiality of the building, it's going to be white hardy board. The committee also suggests that we attach wood trim to the windows and make the shutters operable, which we are amenable to. And then the asphalt architectural style shingles as well. The one other comment is that we clad the garage in matching material, which we will also do.
All righty, thank you very much. Kathy, staff report, please.
This is a bit of a different project than the board often sees. There aren't many vacant lots in the area near the high school, and this happens to be one. As I know you're aware, the west side of McKinley Road is the bike path, a strip of vegetation, the railroad tracks, and then you have the back of the buildings that front on Western Avenue. You have a variety of building types. You have other duplexes along the east side of McKinley Road. You have houses of various styles, various ages. And I think what's presented really is a design that has been worked over. It has been refined. It's been greatly simplified, and proportions have been improved since the initial submittal. It is a duplex, but it is a different type of duplex. It has some character that other duplexes in the area do not have. The location of the detached garage in the back really helps to pull that garage off the streetscape. I think most of the comments in the staff report were already noted. The minimum width of a driveway of 9 feet really is important. Anything less than that really causes an ongoing problem. In this case, it does seem to be that there's the room to shift that over. May require the air conditioners to be pulled around to the rear, but I'm confident that we can work on that. There were a few comments on materials. Certainly the character of this street doesn't necessarily dictate the highest level of materials. Hardy board is appropriate. In this case, the vinyl windows are probably the right choice, but sticking with the wood trim is consistent with passport action, and having the consistency between the hardy board on the garage and the house is important. There is a tree in the southwest corner of the property. City arborist thinks that's important to preserve that tree on the streetscape, and we'll work with the petitioner to do that. This site obviously will have some challenges with respect to access. If need be, workers can be shuttled to the site. The public parking is not that far away, so we're confident that we can work through that. I think that covers all the comments. I do think it's a good project for this location. And I will add, it's a type of housing product that we hear from many in the community is needed. So we do recommend approval. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Okay. Chance for the board to ask questions of petitioner staff. Ross, you want to kick us off?
The red doors.
Yeah, there should be a bit of visual interest on the front facade. It is very plain, but most federal-style buildings do have some ornament around their entries.
Is there any precedent for that down the street?
Down the street, I do not believe so, but the houses are quite varied. There's a lot of side entries as well, so this is a bit different, but not completely out of place.
And what's the roof shingle color, black?
Yeah, it's a slate gray to black, so a very dark gray.
The front stoop material?
The front stoop is a wood porch built out for the concrete foundation walls below, so it will be wood.
You had mentioned that in working with the staff, dormers were eliminated?
Yes, originally there were dormers and a roof access along with a roof deck, so there was only a false gabled roof. We provided a full, true gabled roof in place of those design elements. Federal-style buildings can go either way in terms of dormers. There's precedent for both very plain roof lines and something quite more ornate.
And what was the discussion to eliminate? What was the reason for that?
They felt that the roof access sort of created an unsightly roof line, and that from the street you would be able to tell that there's something back there rather than having a much plainer, simpler massing on the building. It was quite a bit more convoluted to fit that staircase. As you can see, the staircase is in the middle of the building, so that would mean that your stair access would be at a 90-degree angle to the gable that we're presenting. So you'd have this secondary gable that faces, or not gable, projections that are 90 degrees with slight dormers, and it looks quite complicated and out of place.
Was there any consideration to simple front elevation dormers and that were simply attic beyond?
Not since we've revised it to the plain attic space. I don't see any reason why we couldn't address that, but
Thank you.
Ted?
Are these units for sale or is it a rental property? They'll be for sale. Was there any thought to providing a demised garage where each unit owner would have a more private, because it looks like it's just a simple double-car garage? How much more space would be needed if you were going to be putting in two separate garage bays where each owner really has more private storage space for their car?
We could definitely do that. You know, with the way we had it configured, we just have just a regular 2.5 car detached garage.
Mr. Childs, could you use the microphone? Thanks.
We can certainly do that. We just originally, from a site perspective and visually, thought that putting a 2.5 car garage would be more aesthetically pleasing to just have one structure rather than have two separate structures for each car.
Well, I wasn't talking about two separate structures, but having...
A block demising wall.
Oh, and going right down the center to separate.
Right, having two garage...
Oh,
one
absolutely.
building,
We'd be
garage.
open to doing that. Absolutely.
I'm just saying from the marketability of the property.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I
That
think you
if
wanna
there's
divide
bulk,
those.
that's something you should be considering.
Absolutely. No, I misunderstood the question.
The, and I love the simplicity, especially after the last two petitions, I love the simplicity of the plan in front of us. My eyes could actually focus on the elevations better. The garage, I however feel is oversimplified, and I'd love to see similar eaves, whether it's the overhangs, the returns on the garage, or maybe there's a hip on the roof line of the garage, something that helps break it up. It just feels very plain. So I'd love more attention to that. In terms of the whether they're dormers in the main house, I actually think that it's a very nice, clean look. You don't have a big roof mass area. I don't think you need it to break it up. So I can imagine what throwing some dormers up there would look like. I don't think it's necessary. I like the comment that was made that you're going to be using the same clapboard siding on the garage as the main house. I think that's an important distinction. I'm not sure if that was reflected on the plans in front of us or not, but I would want to make sure that that carries forward. My only other question is, I love the red painted door. Are you looking to have the shutters painted the same color, or that's a different color?
We were looking to have the shutters be black. If we can go back to the rendering. And those are all the colors that we selected were characteristic of a true federal style. And the rationale behind the red doors was to give it a little bit of character so it pops from the street.
I have nothing else to add. Nice job.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Michael?
Just one question on that elevation on the front by the window wells, the black band, what is that at the base? Is that just painted concrete or?
No, the window wells at the front also have the shutters.
Oh, they have the shutters as well. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, so they peak up a little bit over the concrete because they're the required egress windows, so they're not going to be that far below grade. So you will see the tops of the windows peeking out over the concrete foundation.
Okay, that's all.
Mr. Moyer?
Yes, question, the plans in the packet do not have a column between the two doors on the, in the porch. entry.
Yes, that
Whereas
was-
the rendering does. I presume the rendering supersedes.
Yes, the rendering
package plans. And I
supersedes.
thought I saw one flash through you on your screen with
Yes,
the,
let
what
me
you're showing tonight.
pull it up. We did put in that third column.
Yeah,
Once the
that-
rendering came back, we
good
liked the
idea.
look, and so we added it in, but we did not get the drawings to you
great.
in time to
So
update.
I'm ready for comments, but we're not, are we there yet?
We're still asking questions, Fred.
No, but I'm the last person to ask questions.
I've got to ask some questions, too.
That was a comment.
Oh, that was a comment. That was really a question.
Do you have any other questions? Fred?
Yeah, when can we start the comments?
I've got a question. Are you gonna have divided lights on the windows, or I see that in the rendering there are, but in the plans, I don't think there were, and so what,
They are. They're vinyl SDL windows, simulated divided lights.
okay, yeah, okay. All right, I think that looks
We left
better.
it off of the
Yeah.
I think the floor or the elevations that you guys have.
Okay. Okay. And you guys do intend to save the oak tree?
Yes.
I believe it's an oak, maybe it's not an oak, but
Yeah, I
a
believe
significant
it's an oak.
tree on the site, okay. Okay. The side, the south side of the house, you've got a neighbor there that is going to be a single-family home that's quite close to you. I'm not quite as concerned about this garage in that I think their angle to see your garage is going to be the west face of the garage more than even the south side of the garage. And it looks like you do have some a window there and a door to break it up a little bit, but you do show a little planting there along the south side of the garage. Is that in fact what you intend to do with a landscape plan?
Yes, I believe that's indicated on the landscape plan that there are some plantings along that back edge of the garage.
Okay. Okay, great. That's all I've got. Any other follow-up questions, guys? Okay, all right. I don't see anyone from the public to testify in that regard, so now we'll take it to internal board review. And Fred, you've been waiting patiently, so why don't we start with you? Any comments?
I almost forgot what I was going to say.
I'm not worried about that.
You're not worried? Okay. I think this is terrific. I really, really do. And the rendering you're showing takes me to Frederick, Maryland. It could take me to other places as well, but I see Frederick, Maryland, which I also see the north section of Lake Forest where the house is going to go here as well, and drove the site and looked at the surrounding structures and so on, and this is going to just fit in very nicely, scale and form. Love the black shutters, red entry doors. And I also appreciate the garage just the way it is. I think the simplicity of the wall, opaque wall surface in relation compositionally to the door, the garage door. It's a very nice relationship there where the garage door has a lesser dimension than the space above it. Usually that's not the case. Usually there's a big door with a little bit of something above it. And here the dominant shape or area is the space above the garage door, because you haven't done anything above the door with trim or features that would break it up. So I think that's one of the very nicest features, and it's in the back, and I think that's great. So your design concerns have gone everywhere around the property. I think it's really very nicely done.
Okay. Michael?
I think that's a nice design. I think it'll fit nicely into the neighborhood, and I'd look forward to seeing the project move forward, and hope that you can work with the staff on the driveway width and whatever you can to take care of that.
Great. Ted?
Thank you.
The only other thing, just to come back to, is to ask the petitioner to reconsider whether they want to use separate garage doors and separate the garage, and that we leave it between the city staff to work out, whether the garage needs to be a little bit bigger to accommodate that. I would certainly support the staff's discretion to manage that process.
Ross?
Neglected to ask, are those flower boxes intended to be included? I support the petition as well. I think it's got a nice massing scale, fits the character of the street, and well thought out.
Okay, great. Yeah, well done, gentlemen. For a duplex project in particular, I think really, really nice, simple, classic design. Wish you the best on that. I do echo Mr. Notes that you need to separate those garages. If you're a for sale product, there's no reason you should share that. The consumer will expect that, I imagine. So in any event, though, I 100% approve it. Nicely done. So if we can have a movement here for approval?
I'll make a motion to approve the project with the comments, board comments, as well as the staff recommendations.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, project is approved. Congrats.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is
Great, yeah.
discussion of any other non-agenda topics. Kathy, anything we need to talk about here?
Nothing that I can think of, no.
Okay, great. With that.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay,
I made it.
I'll second it.
all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we are adjourned.
That's my first motion ever. 6 years on HBC.
Picked up some
2
nice
years.
steam.
I'm not a lawyer.
45 minutes.
That was his first motion.